It's exactly a week since the nationwide lockdown policy was introduced, so how do we judge if it's working? The number of people who have now died from COVID-19 has reached 1,415, and the number of deaths will increase every day until the epidemic begins to reverse. So it's best to look at the growth rate, how many days it's taking for total deaths to double. In the early days, it was doubling every 2 days. But this increase of 180 deaths to 1,415 is fewer than the 209 announced yesterday, and in line with what we have seen in recent days, suggesting a growth rate of doubling around 3 days, although it's likely to be another week or two before the changes show in the figures. Today, the Chief Scientific Advisor, Sir Patrick Vallance, presented new information showing the impact of the lockdown. Let's start with this graph and the effect it is having on transport. It shows how dramatically the number of car, train, bus and tube journeys have decreased. He also said the fact that hospital admissions appear to be stabilising is encouraging. This graph shows the number of COVID-19 admissions has reached 9,000. And the NHS is admitting an additional 1,000 patients a day. However, Sir Patrick Vallance says that number is now stable. And this final graph, comparing UK deaths to the rate in other countries, bears out our evidence that deaths are now doubling every 3 days, slower than Italy was at this stage. That's this blue line, and similar to France, the yellow line here. So a slight flattening. The government says they are succeeding in limiting the spread of the virus, but it will still be a couple of weeks before we know for sure.
So there's a very important issue here, and the issue is capacity, how much the NHS can deal with. Because what will happen is the NHS will arrive at capacity, and then people who cannot be cured, cannot be treated, will be sent home, or they will actually not be picked up by ambulances. They'll be left in their homes to die. Now, if this is the case, what will happen is the curve will rise and flatten at a particular point, and this would be NHS capacity. Now, if people are dying, official numbers presented by the government will remain the same. They may actually go down a bit as people who are treated in hospital have a better chance of recovery than people who are stuck in their homes. So it depends on the transparency of the government. Now, will Boris Johnson's government be transparent here? Will they actually release figures for the numbers who have died in hospital and those who have died at home? And will these numbers be put together so that you can have a clear picture of the numbers who have died because of this illness? I'm afraid my skepticism is interfering here, and I believe that Boris Johnson's government want to flatten the curve artificially. So they want to pretend that the curve has been flattened. So what is the plan? The plan is to release figures for the people who have died in hospital. These numbers will increase over the next week or two, and then they will peak. For a period of time, they will decline. And the government will be able to say, look, we have dealt with this problem. This problem is now under control and it's no longer an issue. But in reality, it will still be a problem because many people will be dying, but they will not be counted.